Compared to the dullest human being walking on the earth, the most brilliantly drawn character in any novel is nothing more than a bag of bones. The only problem is that sometimes I feel like nothing more than a bag of bones myself.
Welcome to Now Playing's review of Bag of Bones.
I keep thinking that Jo, she brought me here
After she died, she brought you here?
for a reason.
Part of the Now Playing Stephen King movie series.
Have fun with Annie Wilkes here.
Hosted by Arnie,
Our knight in shining armor.
Stuart,
He's a mean old son of a buck.
and Jakob.
Goes a little dark score crazy.
These podcasts contain detailed plot spoilers and harsh language.
Just a bad dream.
Listener discretion is advised.
Tell me the secret of Max Duval that you keep in your heart after all these years.
And having myself a time.
Today we're discussing Bag of Bones, starring Pierce Brosnan, Annabeth Gish, Melissa George, Anika Noni Rose, Caitlin Carmichael, and William Schallert. Directed by the one, the only, the auteur, Mick Garris.
Master of Horror.
Also the executive producer, he's getting double pay.
This is the Now Playing podcast host who's always a little dark score crazy, Arnie.
And Stuart.
Hey, and this is the co-host who always gets consent before he touches a tree, or any plant for that matter, Jakob.
Oh my word.
What do? Do you say, wave your leaves once for yes, twice for no?
Exactly, yeah. Yes, I put those leaves on a stuffed moose, and wait for them to shake to give me a sign.
If we're talking about greenery that's attacking people, we must be talking about Mick Garris, the master of horror, the guy who has gone to Stephen King more than any other director. This is, by the way, I did a head count, this is officially the 80th Stephen King show that we've done. And we're still not done with Mick Garris. He's got one more after this.
Man, I almost feel bad for recommending that original The Stand, because I'd like to say I never recommended anything of his, but I still like that original Stand. But man, this guy, he is a bad omen for any Stephen King project, isn't he? I found out he did Bag of Bones when I was looking into this before watching it, and already my expectations were set real low.
Well, I mean, I think there's problems even before we get to talking about this as a movie. Bag of Bones, you say that to people. I don't think many people know this as a Stephen King property. I don't think it has, certainly not the recognition of an It or Salem's Lot or Shining.
Not at all.
I only know Bag of Bones because this is apparently my 80th Stephen King adaptation I've watched, and I know that phrase is turned up in some other ones, but that's the only reason I know this.
Yeah, I remember this book coming out. Again, I was in the Stephen King book club. They mailed me this book. I'd never read it, though, until just the past couple of weeks when I've wanted to read it before watching the miniseries and see what King had written. And I'll be honest, for about 3/4 of the book, I'm like, this is a terribly named book. There's no bag of bones. They're just using it as a metaphor. I can't believe they used this as the title when they should have called it Sarah Laughs, which was the name of the cabin in the book. And then at the end, there is a literal bag of bones. I'm like, okay, it took a while to get there, but we got there.
As Stephen King often does.
550 pages to get there.
How is this 500 pages? I don't know how this is a 2-night event.
Well, let me share this with you. I read it as well, and I don't know how you feel about it, Arnie, but I was reading it and kind of like, oh, this is very different. This feels like Stand By Me at Pupil, like very, very light on the supernatural. For about 300 pages, it's mostly Stephen King talking about what it's like to be an author and, the creative process. And very, very little is about anything ghostly.
So is it a lot more about the writer's block portion of this film?
Yes. And just writing in general. Like, he'll name drop and talk about publishing. And again, I kind of liked it as that. And I really thought, oh, well, this is Stephen King giving us something autobiographical. This feels more like a Shawshank than some kind of Shining. And so that was kind of what I was visualizing. And then the last 200 pages happened and I went, oh my God, what is this novel about? It really went south. But I kind of enjoyed it for about 300 pages and then I hated it.
I am pretty much with you. For the first 300 pages, though, I was asking myself, what is this about? And also asking myself, is it possible for a novelist to put too much of himself in a book? You say this felt autobiographical. How many books about writers have felt autobiographical? The Dark Half, Misery.
Yeah, an alcoholic writer.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these books he's done that feel drawn from him about authors, and he is an author, of course. And so I found myself wanting the book to have a stronger plot, but enjoying what I was getting. It almost seemed like a romance novel because it had this 40-year-old author romancing a 20-year-old single mother. But then when it finally did get to the plot, it felt like it came out of left field and felt very rushed and very much a Shining ripoff. He's ripping off his own material.
Yeah, it starts out as one thing. I noticed heavily on, and it's in this movie too, there's quotations from Rebecca, the Daphne du Maurier novel that was very popular. Maybe people don't know it, but about 90 years ago, this was very popular Gothic fiction writer. Rebecca, it won Best Picture in 1940. It's the only Alfred Hitchcock movie to ever do so. Sometimes Stephen King does that. I feel like I'll read something and I'll be like, oh, he's clearly just doing a Lovecraft. I thought, oh, he's trying to evoke a very specific style of Gothic romance that was popularized by this author, Daphne du Maurier, Rebecca.
You got it on the nose. I listened to an interview with Stephen King talking about this book, and he mentioned Rebecca and how, like, the mystery was supposed to be an inverse of Rebecca, and that was his whole inspiration for this novel, is he was going off of Rebecca.
And I never read Rebecca. I had to read 550 pages of this novel. No time to read anything else. I did pick up the Hitchcock movie. Sidebar, not recommend. It's really one of the worst Hitchcock movies I've ever seen. I can't believe it won Best Picture.
It's the one it got an Academy Award for.
Yeah, should not have happened. Very cheesy. I just, I know Hitchcock can love melodrama, but this one, yick. In the end, the parallels aren't that close. What I would honestly say, once we get to jazz singers coming back from the dead and all of that, very little of the last 200 pages evokes what is essentially the story of a man who has lost his wife tragically and is now afraid to go back to the house where they made a life together. So in that way, they're very similar. But yeah, it's no Rebecca. This is very much, well, a Mick Garris movie once it gets turned into this A&E 2-night event. Now, who even watches Arts and Entertainment Network? Is that even still on? A&E is like we played a ballet or something. Tartuffe, you want an opera. Like, why would this be on Arts and Entertainment?
I'll say right there's a lie, because there's entertainment in the title. There's no entertainment in what we're about to discuss, so.
Is there any such thing as ratings or any gauge? I don't remember this coming out at all. I don't remember this being advertised. I didn't know Pierce Brosnan went back to the Stephen King world.
I didn't know he went back to television, I thought he was a film actor. I didn't think he did TV.
Well, 2011, he is, a decade beyond Bond. He is a decade beyond most leading roles. He had already done Mamma Mia. He had already done anything he ever starred in. He was now playing the dad or the grandfather in movies. So he wasn't above TV. But this?
Yeah, I didn't know this came out. As far as ratings, I don't know how A&E has ratings, I know this would have been bad ratings for a network, but part 1 had over 3 million viewers and part 2 had just under 3 million viewers. So
drop off for sure. Who would come back for night 2?
Only like 300,000 drop off. It was pretty equivalent between the two nights, but I don't know how A&E usually does on a night, so I can't tell you if this was an uptick for them or a mistake.
Good point. Yes. When you have nobody watching, then yes, even a bad Stephen King movie can bring some eyeballs. Hell, we're covering it.
Yeah, plus it did get released on DVD shortly after its airing, so it was available out there and they had another way to make money off of it.
All right, well, tell them this plot and we'll find out why it's such a bag of bones.
Pierce Brosnan plays Mike Noonan, a novelist with severe writer's block. Ever since the accidental death of his wife, Jo, played by Annabeth Gish, Mike hasn't been able to write a word. Needing to get away, Mike goes to the couple's lake house on Dark Score Lake. One day, while driving to the local diner, Mike sees a little girl walking down the middle of the road. He rescues the girl right before she's hit by a car. The girl's mother, panicked, comes along. Her name is Maddie DeVore, played by Melissa George, and her young daughter's name is Kyra. Maddie is a widow, having shot her husband Lance, who was trying to drown Kyra. Now Maddie is in a custody battle with her billionaire father-in-law, Max DeVore, played by William Schallert. Max subpoenas Mike to testify about Kyra being unwatched and in the middle of the street, but, wanting to protect Maddie, Mike gives non-answers to the lawyer's questions. In the midst of all of this, Mike starts to believe his lake house is haunted, possibly by the spirit of his late wife, Jo. Letters on the refrigerator start to rearrange themselves to give Mike messages from beyond. In addition to his late wife, it seems the spirit of a 1930s blues singer is there.
Because?
That singer is named Sarah Tidwell, played by Anika Noni Rose. Mike also starts to find out Jo had come to the lake several times without him and had been spotted with another man. As Jo was pregnant when she died, and Mike had low sperm count, Mike starts to suspect Jo was cheating on him. But in talking to Maddie, it turns out that Jo was seen with Mike's gay brother, played by Matt Frewer. Jo was not having an affair, she was investigating what the locals call Dark Score Madness, where several men in Dark Score Lake have drowned their own daughters, just like Lance DeVore tried to do to Kyra. Max DeVore and his assistant Roguette stalk Mike and throw rocks at his head. Mike barely escapes. Then Max makes Mike a deal that Max will stop the custody battle if Mike doesn't press charges for the attack. Mike agrees. That night, Max commits suicide with the egg of Roguette. Mike goes to Max's funeral, where he meets Edgar White, a local oldster. Mike gets Edgar to reveal that back in 1939, Max DeVore led a group of boys to follow, rape, and murder blues singer Sarah Tidwell. The assault was seen by Sarah's daughter, so the boys captured and drowned the little girl. As she died, Sarah Tidwell put a curse on all the men's bloodlines that their male heirs will kill their daughters, just like these men killed Sarah's daughter. One of those men was an ancestor of Mike. Jo was investigating the Dark Score Madness, worried that if she had a daughter, Mike might drown the little girl due to the curse. Mike goes to have dinner with Maddie, but Maddie is shot and killed by one of Max's goons. Dying, Maddie asks Mike to take care of Kyra. But now that Mike has custody of the little girl, the curse takes hold. He draws a bath planning to drown the little girl, but a vision of Maddie's ghost breaks the spell. Following clues left by Jo's ghost, Mike finds Jo's research into the curse, and that if he finds the remains of Sarah Tidwell and Sarah's daughter, he can douse the skeletons with lye and break the curse. In the midst of a terrible rainstorm, Mike goes to a tree under which Sarah and her daughter had been buried.
A shapely tree.
Yeah, you're not even telling them the truth, but okay. We'll call it just a tree.
Sexy tree.
Oh my God, the sexiest.
Did you get wood? Mike exhumes the remains and pours lye on the bones, causing what flesh remained to melt away. Mike returns to his house where he's attacked by Roguette, who wants to drown Kyra. Mike kills Roguette. Then, the nightmare over, Mike says he plans to adopt Kyra as his own daughter as credits roll.
Okay. And if that sounded fragmented and sort of like Mad Libs, and it did.
That's how this film feels.
That's how the last 200 pages felt. I mean, I will just say when I was reading it early on, I was thinking, oh, this needs the touch of a Rob Reiner. This needs to feel like good acting and drama. You could never have Mick Garris turn this into a garish horror movie because there's just not enough there. And then I realized as this thing gets started, they're going to brush right through all of that slow stuff and try to just get to horror right away. I mean, the wife within 5 minutes is going to be run down by a bus.
Right at the beginning, it caught my attention because it's like opening credits. I'm usually not, totally engaged at that point, but they did a loud scream. Like, I don't know what that loud noise is, but there's a scream and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I will pay attention. And I feel like that is how this film is. I will start to doze off and then a loud noise will come and then I'll doze off again and then another loud noise.
Yeah, in the book, Jo's death is very much a shock because she had a stroke and died of a hemorrhage. Here, they're going to have her hit by a bus.
She didn't get hit by a bus because she doesn't know how to look both ways?
No. Yeah, there's a lot that has been, I think, intensified. The idea is it's going to be gorier, shocking, more in your face, because they don't want to tell a slow story. They don't want to make one of those Shawshanky kind of Stephen King's.
And yet, ironically, this is a very slow miniseries.
Oh, yeah, it's still boring because, again, jump scare boredom.
Yes.
Like, how many scenes do we need of Pierce Brosnan getting spooked by a plastic owl or something?
Like, there's 3 scenes in a row where he makes out with a ghost and then it turns into a corpse, one right after the other.
Well, that's actually right from the book. That actually happened in the book. Only all 3 were happening simultaneously in the book. But yeah, I think, can we all agree this didn't need to be a 2-night event? We could have compressed this down to 1 2-hour with commercials.
With commercials, yes, please.
There's many regrets I have. I'll start with maybe the most obvious. Pierce Brosnan. He is, a charming British actor, probably good for light comedies. He had his phase of being a spy, Bond, what have you. He is horrendous as a grieving husband.
Can I correct you? He's Irish.
Okay.
And do they ever explain how he's brothers with Matt Frewer? I may have missed this, but
oh, yeah.
One is Irish and one is American, and it's confusing.
And one looks like Matt Frewer. I mean, yes. Come on. Like, those two in any universe could be brothers is hilarious to me. But yes, he's just miscast.
Yeah, in the book, that character is Jo's brother, Mike's brother-in-law, which I could believe that they were brothers-in-law, but brothers, the fact that Mick Garris likes Matt Frewer this much is annoying and bad casting.
I mean, I got excited when I saw him. It is Mick Garris doing Stephen King. You gotta have Matt Frewer.
And yet, if you're expecting the Matt Frewer of, well, the movies we've covered, he barely is in this thing. This is a almost one-man show with Pierce Brosnan, and he is not up to the part. There are so many crying scenes. He has to go to such emotional depths, and he's just not that kind of actor.
And I'm often laughing when he tries to go there.
Yeah, I mean, you need a Daniel Day-Lewis. Again, you need an actor's actor to make this a drama.
I'm just laughing thinking of Mick Garris trying to direct Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right.
He's gone full method and yeah.
I don't think Mick Garris could constrain him.
No. The mind reels at thinking of Mick Garris, working with any good actor. But yes, this is just, unfortunately, Pierce Brosnan is worse here than he was in Lawnmower Man.
He is. He is truly awful in this. And Pierce Brosnan is not an awful actor. And I can't decide if it's that this is too dramatic a role and everything I've seen Pierce Brosnan in is not dramatic, or if, let's be fair, an actor's performance is dependent upon the director. And if the director isn't any good, then he can't help shape the actor's performance to where it needs to be. I think we have plenty of blame to spread around and not put it right all on Brosnan.
Or maybe you just want to blame Mick Garris for all of it, and I'm not going to stop you. But yes, it's kind of almost comedic the way that this thing starts with a successful author turning to his wife and saying, I couldn't write my books without you. Next scene, she's hit by a bus. And so I guess that's one way of framing this story. It's the story of a man who has writer's block and his muse is gone. And maybe this is the story of how he finds his voice again. If you want to make that case, I'd love to hear it.
That's what I thought it was going to be.
It's what it should have been.
Like, I was watching this with my younger daughter because she's like, I want to watch a scary movie. I'm like, it's Mick Garris. I don't know how scary it's going to be. Maybe scary bad. But, like, she's really into, like, Greek mythology and the muses. So, like, we were coming up with all these theories, like, that she, like, was literally a muse or something and he was going to have to reconnect with her.
Yeah, I bet you never saw a blues singer in a sexy tree coming at you.
Nope. Who could?
Yeah. And again, Mick Garris' just tone is wrong. He's making in-jokes. You know, there's a misery joke. Even when they're here at the book signing, there's a number one fan and, you know, he just don't do that. Really? Like later they're going to repeat the Jack Torrance thing of all work and no play, you know?
Yep.
Like, I just feel like you don't want to reference other Stephen King. You don't want even people to be thinking Stephen King. You want to tell a nice, dramatic story without winking humor. That to me felt wrong.
I didn't mind the number one fan in joke, but then the fact that the wife then says, have fun with Annie Wilkes, that's too much, you know? I mean, people do say I'm your number one fan.
I was already thinking it. You don't need to say it.
Exactly. Yeah. You gotta know when to wink and when to just let a joke go. But if you want great acting, of course you turn to Jason Priestley, who shows up at Joe's funeral as Mike's agent, who, I know you're grieving, but let's talk business at the gravesite.
That is insane. That whole scene. I'm like, this is not real life. I don't care if, like, this is the real Stephen King. Like, his agent wouldn't be coming up to him during his wife's funeral. Like, no way. It's laughable.
Yeah. All right. Let's just bring back the book just so it helps to give context and how this is more rushed and set in a different way. The book was about an author who used to write a whole lot and had a stockpile of books lying around. And after his wife died, he had no ability to write, and he would just reach into the drawer and pull out a novel that no one knew he had written and pass it off as his latest thing. And that would go on again and again until the cookie jar was empty, and then he had no other choice but to go to the lake house and try and find a story. Here, they're just gonna, I think Jason Priestley, again, more in-jokes, says Richard Bachman is putting out his book this spring, so we need to have, there's a hole in the fall. All the fall authors are publishing this spring, so even though you just published a book, and even though your wife was just mowed down by a bus, I need you to produce a novel in 3 months. Not the same thing. And again, what I love so much about the book was it seemed to understand authors and the publishing business and the writing. And here, absolutely everything feels absurd and not grounded in reality.
Yeah, when I start learning about trunk novels that they're going to say over and over, like, this feels very inside baseball, and it's not letting me. I haven't read the novel. I'm not a author that has an agent and know this whole industry. So it goes very quick, and I'm like, yeah, what do I pick up? What am I supposed to grasp from this conversation?
Yeah, it's really hard to get a grasp, and it's funny to me because this stuff is going so quickly, but what you can't oversell is in the book, it goes so slowly. I don't mind the pacing of the book because I kind of enjoyed lingering in the world Stephen King created. I feel like he created good characters in that book. And so while I felt like it was dragging at times, it didn't necessarily bother me so much. But here, it's like the opposite. It's like they're trying to put in so much from the book, but yet so much of that book was about the writer's block. And here, you get one scene of Pierce Brosnan sitting at a keyboard looking frustrated. It really feels downplayed.
They want, by the first commercial break, to get the guy to the scary house. And it wasn't even a scary house. Again, like, I feel like they have chosen, this novel ultimately, because of all the loose plot strands at the end, it could be many things. I guess it could be a creepy Shining story if you wanted to, but they've chosen to draft it in the traditional ghost story way. And that means they're just rushing past all my favorite stuff from the novel that, yes, is the slow stuff, is just drama with no tinge of the supernatural. And here, again, they just have just the kind of stuff that I just hate. Filler, where he looks under the bed and the wife gets dragged away like it's a Paranormal Activity movie. And just so many scenes of, I don't know, dream sequences running through the forest. And, he sees a little girl in a red bathing suit that's later going to be a real character that he meets.
With the Boston Red Sox hat, and I'm trying to piece this together, clues, okay, something with Boston. This is about a writer. He should be investigating. That's what they do. They research, and he never researches, hardly. Everything is told to him by ghosts.
Stephen King wrote a novel about the Boston Red Sox, nonfiction. He loves them, and Mick Garris knows that, and so he threw the hat on the girl.
So that's why she had a hat?
Yeah.
Because Mick Garris just does everything that Stephen King likes. He's the only director Stephen King has ever been polite to.
Frank Darabont.
Okay, fair that. Yes.
But he made good movies.
I mean, better than this. That is who should have made Bag of Bones. I will just go ahead and frame. If you read Bag of Bones, you would say, who has the right feel for this? The sentimentality, the drama, with just a touch of weirdness going on. Frank Darabont is your guy. Mick Garris is who you get to make schlock, sleepwalkers. And this is now what it becomes. Once we get to this dark score lake, it just becomes a series of jump scares with very unconvincing special effects.
What is this lake's name? Dark Score. I thought it was Scar at first. Dark is scary and scars are scary, so that tells me something ominous. Dark Score, though. Is there water polo being played here? I don't even understand this name.
I took it just as a spooky name. Again, it's not from the book at all. This town doesn't have a name. The cabin had a name, and it was Sarah Laughs, named after Sarah Tidwell.
Yeah, and I don't love that name either.
Huh, did she live there?
Yes, sort of. It was reputed that she had been in the neighborhood, yes, at the time. But, what I'm getting a real vibe for, once we're walking around and we see the moose head and all of this, and, he's the bell ringing and all this, Dead by Dawn. I'm thinking Evil Dead, that moose head's going to come alive. It just looks like the Sam Raimi cabin in the woods.
Yeah, because there is a deer head in that one.
Yeah, and Stephen King had those, bushes come alive in The Shining that were shaped like lions or whatever.
Again, yes, the way that Mick Garris filmed that hedge maze thing. Yes, that is what it's set up to do. And yes.
I was waiting for that moose to blink or come alive somehow.
Yeah, it's just enough that he believes, and I'm not really sure. Are we to think that he's losing his mind from the start? He believes he is talking to his wife when he looks at his screensaver. She's his wallpaper on his laptop. When he should be writing, he's asking her, honey, should I do this? Is this okay? Ring once for yes, 2 for no. And then if the phone rings, he assumes that's her.
Meanwhile, he's investigating because he found out she was pregnant when she died. He has low sperm count, and so he thinks she cheated. And so a subplot that's going to be going while he's talking to the ghost is he's trying to figure out what his wife was doing in Dark Score Lake without him.
I mean, he talks to Sid early on, his brother, who would go to the lake with her, but then it couldn't be them because he's gay. Did he know Sid was gay before he started investigating? He seems like he's a suspect at the beginning.
I think the audience is supposed to think Matt Frewer is the guy because of the way the line reads.
Obviously, yeah.
We don't know that Matt Frewer is gay. And I still don't think that totally takes it off the page that they weren't doing something. But yes, that is some kind of mystery. If this were a relationship movie, if this were actually about a marriage and an author who feels bad about spending so much time on his own work and not enough with his wife, I guess this would be an important storyline. But I'm not really sure that in this version, as it comes out in the story, that it really matters that much.
It never feels like he puts a whole effort into finding who she was cheating with, if that's what he thinks. It's something that comes up like every 40 minutes throughout this thing and then gets dropped and I never feel like it has real weight to it.
Yeah, it should be reflected in the story at large. If he's suspicious of his partner, he should be drawn into a plot that is about cheating spouses or something, and the plot that he's drawn into is that little girl in the bathing suit just happens to be running down the middle of the road and he saves her before she's run down.
Yes, little Kyra, and we introduced to her mother, Maddie, who, in this version of the story, killed Kyra's dad. Now, that wasn't in the book.
No. And again, they've done a lot to neaten up and say that everything is about killing little girls. That wasn't really the thing.
No, that wasn't what I got out of the book.
That wasn't the book? Because that's all this is.
Not that cleanly, but yes, they've made it as such. And I don't know. Here's the thing. If you follow Rebecca, that novel was about a sort of easily duped woman who is following a man to a mansion and realizes, she's being gaslit and controlled and wants to run away. If this is the inverse, I'm looking a lot at Maddie as someone evil. Like, I actually think she is bad. And the way that this actress plays it, I feel, I don't know, I'm not charmed by their relationship. She seems like someone that is working an angle, that she just happens to be there. Oh, you're my favorite author. I feel like, I don't know, did you guys get the idea that she had her own agenda for him?
I didn't, but I read the book. I just think these two have no on-screen chemistry, though.
They definitely don't.
I feel like the romance between them that I believed and cared about in the book was really bad in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought there was something sinister about her at the beginning. You'll see you'll run into some townies who are like, beware of her, don't get involved. And I thought maybe that little girl's being used to lure him in or something. But no, she's just a bad mom. Lets her kid run all over the place.
I mean, she is, right? Can we admit that is on her, that she has a child running down the middle of the street, and maybe someone should remove her? DCFS should come in here, but it's not DCFS. It's her evil 84-year-old father-in-law who now I start to think maybe this is supposed to be about the scariness of old people, but it's kind of hilarious. And Stephen King really played it up that he had this like super wheelchair that could run you down.
At one point, he's going to be like on some rocks by the seaside. I'm like, that is like an 4x4 off-road wheelchair he's got.
Yes, yeah. And that was like the scariest scene in the novel. It was like that character got driven into the sea by, well, his name is Max DeVore.
And Max is trying to get custody of Kyra, and it moves very fast here. I mean, it feels like the same night that Mike finds Kyra in the road, Mike is being subpoenaed by Max.
Yeah, and again, like, as it was in the story, this was about class. Max had a lot of money. He had made it in software development. Now, this man is 84 years old.
That was around in 1939 as like a old teenager?
Yeah. I don't know what computers he was programming, but okay, I'll just say sure. And because of that, it was made apparent that Maddie lived in a trailer, had no means, and he just didn't like the fact that his son went with that kind of woman. And so that was the battle, and it was about class. And again, so much of the novel was spent on that. I guess now it's just supposed to be that, I don't know. I'm curious to know, Jacob, as you being the only one that didn't read the story, what did you see as the threat? What is this story about for you? Are you rooting for Maddie not to have her kid taken away? Are you thinking...
I mean, what is the story is something I constantly wrote down in my notes. I'm like, I'm an hour in. What is the plot?
Yeah.
2 hours in. What is the plot? So that is something that is a mystery to me until like the last 10 minutes when I fully understand what this story is.
Fair. And you can't believe that's the plot.
Yeah, it's wild. It is all about the sexy tree. But the only thing that makes me side with Maddie ultimately is not like, well, Max, they play him as kind of scary, but he has this real creepy, I don't know if she's an orderly or secretary, what she is, Rogette, but like she is so creepy. I'm like, okay, those are the bad guys. guys. We are not supposed to side with them, but it's just because of that casting and the way she's almost comedic, the way she plays this villainous character.
It does remind me of one of the characters from High Anxiety, that Mel Brooks film.
Yeah, she's clearly, let me just put it this way. Rebecca has a very evil maid, and she seems drawn very much in that sort of like, it's not that she does anything. Again, she just is following orders, but there's just something sinister about her, and she's obviously capable of a lot of violence, or at least rock throwing. Championship rock throwing at the climactic scene. But yeah, I guess I'm curious as to what you would think this was all about, because in the middle of all of this, there's all this stuff about a blues singer and her phantom records playing in the basement, and like all of that stuff. For me, Arnie, I'm curious about for you. I didn't really pay attention to that until the last part of the novel, and then I couldn't believe that was the story. Like, I didn't care about this Sarah Laughs, Sarah Tidwell thing.
I knew where that was going. I knew that Sarah Tidwell, because they talk about how there were no stories of her leaving town. In the book, I'm like, okay, she was raped and murdered. We're going to find out she was raped and murdered, and that's going to be a big reveal at some point. And it takes King a long time to get there, where I felt like because of how much Sarah Tidwell was mentioned and how much was about her.
You felt that?
Yeah, I did.
I barely paid attention to that name in the first 300 pages. I'll just say it that way. I just wasn't tracking that as a really important focal point.
I'll say, because Mick Garris expertly put a scream at the beginning of this to get me to pay attention to those credits. I noticed a black girl getting drowned, and then when we cut to this Sarah, I'm like, oh, this is probably related. This is a time travel story, or a story that traverses time or something. So I was paying attention to Sarah, but I did not expect it to go where it goes.
You definitely do in this story, and maybe it's good that you do, since it is so crazy at how it becomes about her in the book. By commercial break 5, we've definitely had, a dream sequence where we go back to 1939 and see her performing, and you definitely know she must be important, because she just keeps popping up. At one point, she even as like this zombie comes and makes out with Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, and what's strange to me in this adaptation is the supernatural stuff felt very minor in the book. I would forget about the ghosts.
Yes.
When I was reading the book.
That's all this is.
Yeah, that's the thing. Every so often, King would insert a few pages about how the letters on the refrigerator would rearrange themselves or something. And I'd be like, okay, so there's a ghost somewhere.
And it didn't happen in front of him. Like, it wasn't stop motion. The letters are scrambling on the door.
I don't think that was stop motion. That looked like bad CGI.
No, I think they actually just had a magnet on the other side and were doing dragging. I thought that was just a very simple, practical effect. But yeah, it's just, there was so little supernatural. It was dribbled in. But there was so little in the first, as you say, 300 pages of that book. And that's nothing but supernatural here. There's nothing going on night one except ghosts and jump scares and everything. And I'm not really able to care for this Mike Noonan, played by Pierce Brosnan.
And when we say it's nothing but supernatural, that's not necessarily a good thing. It's not like I'm being scared constantly. It's Mike Noonan, walking around and, he'll hear a bell. And then he'll walk around and look through some papers and hear a bell, and then there will be a scream from a corpse ghost or something. There's a lot of supernatural stuff does not mean it's entertaining.
No, it's definitely not scary. And yes, it gets quite redundant after a while.
Yeah.
And I don't think Mick Garris could have made that book. You know what I mean? That's what I mean about Frank Darabont. Green Mile was that way, where it was mostly a drama, but then you'd get a little bit of supernatural in there, and it increased, the further that it went along. Here, Mick Garris only knows how to do one thing, and it is this cheesy, in-your-face stuff that just pick a different book, right? This is a poor match of director and material, and then it's miscast to boot. So there really isn't much that I liked about the book here at all. It doesn't feel like Rebecca. It doesn't feel like a class warfare drama. I'm actually laughing when I see the old dude in the wheelchair. He's not intimidating at all.
Yeah, he was a formidable presence in that book. And Not so once you realize this. There's things that work on the page that just don't work when you see them in person.
Or when Mick Garris adapts them.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But yeah, perhaps casting would have helped.
The title, we get an explanation for the title here in Night 1. It's a Thomas Hardy quote that basically it's talking about writing, that the best drawn characters in a book, they're a bag of bones compared to the complexity of real people. And again, so much of it was about the creative process and how authors have self-doubt. And does it even matter that he's an author? I mean, I'll just ask. If they had changed the character and he was just a plumber, would it have mattered?
No, you have it be about an author. Again, someone that researches, investigates. So I thought he's going to be doing more detective work. It's actually annoying that he's an author and so bad at finding out what this mystery is.
And why is he able to write here? Because he can only write with Joe around and because he believes her ghost is here. I guess her ghost is here, although sometimes it's the blues singer ghost. But he is creatively inspired by Poltergeist?
No, she is writing through him. He's not even doing the writing. He is just a vessel. Joe's the one writing to give him secret messages that Sarah won't know about.
He's not writing a book?
No.
Oh, wow.
And that's in the original one, too.
He's not writing it at all?
He's the one typing it. He thinks he's writing it, but it's really Joe.
Okay. I guess I didn't even get that in the book.
I thought maybe she just messed with the formatting later on to get the letters to line up.
Yeah, no, I knew at certain points that it was her interference and her trying to send messages, like refrigerator magnet letters, but...
She couldn't even spell with those refrigerator magnets. How could she write a book?
There weren't enough letters there, and at least in the book, he went and bought more letters so that she had more vowels to work with.
I always believed that there was a portion of that story that was about how authors, where their ideas come from and how they formulate the books that we read. I thought there was a postmodern element to that. And now it just feels like a cheap trick to get a ghost to type. So how do you hang a cliffhanger out of this? There's not a whole lot of suspense. Maybe you're worried about Maddie having her daughter taken away, but even by the end of Night 1, it seems like that case has fallen apart. Pierce Brosnan has given his deposition and they're losing that case. The old man is not going to be able to do it. They have some kind of cheap jump scare where Kyra as a zombie pops out of the bathtub. Like, that's not a hook.
Which I thought was like full of piss or something. It is the dirtiest looking water. And then, yeah, a corpse child pops out of it. And I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. And it's a cliffhanger, apparently.
It means Mick Garris is ripping off Kubrick. I mean, the lady in the bathtub in The Shining is such an iconic image. And that's what they're doing here. That's why the water is the color it is. I mean, that old lady in The Shining wasn't in crystal clear water either.
Yeah, but is he ripping off Kubrick or is he just going back to The Shining? I mean, keep in mind, he directed that TV version. But it's only until Night 2 that we really hear about the curse. I don't think that you would understand. Maybe you get it in glimmers, but I don't think that it's been articulated well that this is a town that has lost all its daughters and that all of these men that are saying beware of Maddie are doing so because they want Kira dead.
Yeah, I got it with Kyra's dad trying to drown her, but it's not till Night 2 that you learn about Dark Score Crazy and that this is a pattern that's been going on.
Yeah.
Which would have been helpful the first night to hook me to make me watch the second night, because I would not want to watch it.
No, I wouldn't return for Night 2 after watching Night 1. In fact, legitimately, I wouldn't have finished Night 1. I would have turned this off probably an hour in.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. It's a real snooze fest. And again, if commercials were in between, yeah, all the more invitation to channel flip and not come back. But it is only until Night 2 that they really start to dig in the hooks about what this Mick Garris version of, like, okay, this town is cursed. Like, this is the story of a cursed town, and we're supposed to be intrigued by the fact that another little girl's life hangs in the balance. 50 years ago, the house caretaker, Bill Dean, his father killed his sister. There's this guy that was a chef, and he watched his sister be drowned. And yeah, everyone's got a sob story about a little girl that died in their family tree.
And they're all drowned, and you'd think that this wouldn't be... You'd think Dateline would be there.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know, this would not be something that the housekeeper whispers about. I mean, there's a lot of dead girls in this town. They've all been drowned by their fathers. I think that this is national news type stuff.
I guess Max, he's just paying off the cops to keep this quieter. We'll find out the one sheriff in town, he controls him, so I guess he was paying people off to cover it up?
Yes, because Max is ultimately going to make the deal of, this writer can't investigate me. I would rather not get the daughter. I'm going to drop the case rather than let this story come out. And we get glimmers of it. Again, everything happens in dreams, but Pierce Brosnan goes to bed and he goes back to that 1939 fair, and Kyra is there with young Max chasing her around. And it's sort of a preamble, a symbol of what is to come about what they did to the blues singer and her daughter.
But that's in the book that Max says, stop investigating me. In this TV movie, what you have is we get that scene we referenced where Max and Roget meet up with Mike on the road, and Roget starts throwing rocks at him and he falls into the water.
Again, a scary scene in the book that is hilarious here.
It's scary in the book?
Well, it's intended to be. I mean, again, you definitely get the sense.
It's suspenseful. Suspenseful's the word I would use.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm cracking up at this scene. It's one of the funniest in here.
It is funny. And that's this Mick Garris' charm, is that he's just able to take anything that Stephen King wrote that was ever good and make it laughable.
Turn it to crap.
And Stephen King loves him for it. Says it's faithful.
But then we get the cop showing up at Mike's cabin and just says, Max will drop the custody suit if you don't press charges. There's nothing about investigating him. There's nothing about, in the book, Mike hires high-powered lawyers and private detectives and all of this to help Maddie. None of this is in this movie. And so it doesn't really seem like Mike is that pivotal to Maddie's case the way it is in the book. Mike is Maddie's benefactor in the book. And here, which also helps blossom their romance. He's a bit of a sugar daddy type situation. And you can see Maddie being attracted to a powerful rich man. And so in this TV version, there's none of that. I don't understand Maddie's attraction to this author unless she's just a starfucker.
She's just a big fan, as she says at the beginning. That's it.
And Max deciding to drop the custody case feels unmotivated as well.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. It was confusing.
The only reason why you let it go is because you didn't care, right? Like, nobody even cared how that resolved itself. But then it gets really weird in that, basically, yes, this offer to drop it further or something. It seems like they already won, but Max wants to make a deal and Mike takes it. So now we have this bizarre scene where Rosette puts him in a bathtub. Talk about overkill. I think she drowns him, suffocates him, and ODs him.
Why? Why does any of this happen? Except maybe you need something scary to show.
I don't know. Is it scary? Because I'm laughing.
I mean, it's not scary, but you know what I mean. It's a horror movie. We got to have some death, some gruesome stuff. That's the only explanation I could come up with. Was Roget, fighting against him the whole time?
I just assumed when reading the story, he was going to come back from the dead, that he had some ability to do that.
Yeah, I thought this was black magic ritual.
Yes. And then I just never understood, even in the book, why any of this happened.
He was sickly, he was on oxygen, he was dying a slow death in the book, and so this was euthanasia. But you don't get that from his performance here in this movie, that he was knocking on heaven's door.
Or hell's.
But isn't his whole thing, just to kind of jump to the end, he's trying to end this curse by killing Kyra? There's something said about that, but dude, you're just old, you're gonna die anyway. What do you care about this curse going on?
Yeah, for real. You lived your whole life as a rich person.
Your son's already dead, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, why does it, you never had a daughter, right?
No.
And in the book, Rosette was his daughter.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't even know who she is in this, except, when she pops up at the end, I'm really thrown for a curve.
Yeah. This character work is important, and it's been totally, overlooked by a director that doesn't care about that kind of thing, that is trying to make this trashy and exciting. And again, so many jump scares, so much, to me, it's just tedious. All the scenes we've had of Pierce Brosnan passing by the refrigerator and going, oh my God, look what the magnets say now.
I mean, it should be said, like, if there were more scenes where he's jogging and, like, has to cop a feel on a tree, which makes him puke, like, I would have really been into this film.
Yeah. And I think he has a shining moment, too, where, like, he's like, I'm really writing some good stuff now, and it's 250 pages of, okay, help me out with this. Lie still, bag of bones is ultimately going to mean take some lye from underneath some stone owl things and pour it over the bones that are underneath the sexy tree.
Why is the still in there? Just like lie the bag of bones or something.
Why can't the wife just write the actual instruction? Must everything be in these codes?
She's a bad speller.
You just say, okay, honey, since I'm the one typing all of this, we've got to, stop this witchy woman who is buried under that tree. Why the games?
And to talk about Sarah, you call her a witchy woman? I'm really conflicted with, like, do they really make her the bad guy? The rape victim, murder victim is actually the bad guy that needs to be defeated at the end?
Okay, we complained about this with Desperation. Like, all of a sudden, like, suddenly it's like, I mean, think about it. It goes all the way back to Carrie. That Stephen King has a lot of empathy for bullied characters, for marginalized people that have been exploited and abused and raped by the system. And yet he does want them to be the specter of evil. Really?
Like, this should be a Sixth Sense situation where you dig up the bones and you bring them some kind of peace.
We're on her side. Yes.
Yeah, we want her to be at ease.
She was wronged. Yeah, so I don't want him to find this bag of lie underneath the owls and all this horse shit.
Correct.
To go and get rid of her. Like, maybe, you get rid of the old guy, but her I don't want vanquished. Her I don't even understand why she's here. That storyline does not belong in this work.
It didn't belong in the book very well.
No, it's what sank the book for me. That went from being a decent book to being utter trash because of this storyline.
It really feels like a different book at the end. It feels like King decided he was meandering too much and he had a different idea and he just decided to take a hard left turn with Bag of Bones and write something different. But I'm torn on this whole Sarah Tidwell thing. She's a sympathetic character who was wronged, but yet in this curse, I mean, it's kind of like Thinner. The Roma woman there was wronged, and then she created the curse, and so you had to try to stop the curse. It's kind of a trope King goes back to again and again. The reason why bad things happen is because something happened to that person. I do want men to stop drowning their daughters, and if that means burning Sarah Tidwell's body with lye, then okay, she's already dead.
No, you do a Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense and bring some kind of peace to that. Like, you do not villainize her.
Yeah. How about throwing these men in jail as opposed to, trying to kill a woman who's killing their daughters? Like, admittedly, it's not the most direct way of hurting these men. Do these men even care that their daughters and granddaughters die? I don't know. They did a horrible thing, and our only evidence about how they feel about it is another dream sequence or something. Mike follows this old guy home from the funeral.
Yeah, why does he do that?
He's just babbling that, this is what we did back in 1939, including your grandfather.
Yeah, I'm so glad that this old man will tell anyone who walks into the nursing home,
I'm a rapist.
Right.
I used to rape and kill a person.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, this is a sundowning moment here. Like, you can't even trust this to be true. He doesn't even have validity.
It may be all dementia.
Yeah, a complete, utter madness. There's no reason to give this credence whatsoever.
Sure, Grandpa, let's get you to bed.
Uh-huh. Okay. But yeah, this is really, truly where, I mean, it was boring for most of its run, but this last half hour is a real scream here. This is some of Mick Garris's worst work as a horror filmmaker.
And that's really saying something, because we watch Sleepwalkers.
I know. I mean what I say. But yes, when Mike returns to Maddie and we think that it's all resolved, they decide that everything is A-okay, that Joe wasn't cheating on him and that she was just worried about the curse. And, the case is solved because the old man is dead. And then bang, Why kill her? Why did they even do this?
Yeah, the sheriff just shows up and, like, shoots her in the head. I mean, there was a vision, I guess, earlier of her with a hole in her head, but, like, I don't know why this is happening.
No, you should shoot Kyra. You don't shoot her, right?
Yeah, in this movie, I don't understand why Maddie gets shot. I understood it in the book that Max DeVore had set up some machinations before he killed himself, and that he hired people to do this so that his will was accomplished even after death. There was a codicil in his will. None of this is in the movie, where, like, Max had left Mattie a big inheritance, but she had to stay in town, and the point of keeping her in town is so that she could be murdered. None of this is here.
It wasn't good either in the book, but yes, there was justification at least.
Yeah, I don't even really know who kills her and why in this. It was the sheriff guy?
Yeah, I thought he was the deputy, but who cares what his rank is? Yeah, he's been barely in any scenes. He's a gopher for Max that, yes, kills the wrong person, and that means that Mike can grab the little girl and go on a chase scene where other people I don't know are following him in a pickup truck.
That just runs into a sign and explodes?
No, the blues singer makes lightning come down to kill them with a sign?
Is that what it was?
I have to believe that is all Sarah. That killing off these men, to which I say, why not do that 50 years ago?
I thought it was honestly just the weather.
Well, that's what I thought.
But again, I was influenced by the book where there was just a big storm coming up. But I just thought it was the weather that struck that sign and killed those guys.
I mean, that's so bad. Any way you try to explain it, horrendous.
I mean, you've seen the previous 2.5 hours of this, haven't you?
Yes. No, but this is so much worse. I mean, again, as we're building to a climax, and what it seems to be, talking about Jack Torrance, we all know that he goes crazy in the end, gets the axe, and tries to chop up his wife and child. All right, tell me why Brosnan doesn't drown her when he gets her home and pours a bath.
Because Maddie shows up as a ghost and says don't.
A shower ghost. Yeah, she is the shape of water. But this is, like, look, Pierce Brosnan has done some really poor acting in this, but, like, this feels like the moment, the Jack Torrance shining moment.
Yes.
Like, I don't know who fumbled the ball here. Him, Mick Garris, whoever. I should have been so worried for Kyra here, and I'm not. I'm like, he's not going to do it. He's not threatening in this.
Random guys trying to chase him in a pickup truck and kill her, not scary. A father figure that's going to turn on you, and yes, that would be really frightening if Pierce Brosnan were suddenly trying to hurt this girl that he had been protective of the whole movie.
For what it's worth, I didn't buy it in the book either. I didn't think they'd go through with it, and I saw Stephen King ripping himself off because The Shining did that so much better. I was never in suspense about this. I was just curious what was going to make it not happen.
And more to the point, if you're going to end with them being a family and going off and canoeing together, Kyra would not accept him, right? If you come at me with an axe, if you throw me in the tub and try to drown me, I don't want you to be my daddy. I don't care what Ghost Mom says. I'm not doing it. I feel like they might have filmed something more violent and then just backed away from it because they realized it would hurt the way we felt about Pierce Brosnan.
But it didn't get more violent in the book either.
And you're right. Mick Garris, if nothing else, tries to slavishly do what Stephen King does on the page. That's why King likes him, is that he doesn't change things like that awful Kubrick. And so maybe you're right. Maybe this is just a little moment that is meant to imply violence that was never going to get more intense. And it just allows us to have all of this horrible, I don't even want to go through it, but he figures out that it has something to do with owls and lie and whatever.
No, we got to go through it a little bit because now this tree has a name. It's the Green Lady, and it grows a face, which the tree screams, but the face, like the mouth does not open. It does not do anything.
Oh, no, I'll talk about the tree all day long. I was just not wanting to talk about the riddles, about how you look at the left side of things.
Oh, I hated all that. Yeah.
To read that it's all about the owls, and the owls are something that are just decorations lying on bags of light. God damn. We don't need that.
Yeah, no, that stuff is bad.
Yeah, it's really Honestly, it's confusing, and I read the damn book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not clever. And it's, in this minimized version, you don't even know why there are owls there or any of it.
Is there a reason that they're owls?
There's sort of. I mean, there's details in the novel.
It's part of the mystery of the wife cheating on him.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, Mo, my favorite part of this entire thing is that we have Anika Noni Rose superimposed on Sexy Tree and bitch slapping Pierce Brosnan.
I wrote bitch slap in my notes too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
He gets bitch slapped by a tree.
He does. That is so awesome. I mean, we complain about the hedge animals in the Shining TV miniseries, but this is Mick Garris. You have gone to a new low.
I want Mick Garris to do a whole, the Ents, the walking living trees in Lord of the Rings. Give him an Ent movie after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so bad. The superimposition, the fact that the sexy tree exists in this movie, but then the fact that the sexy tree is going to start slapping Pierce Brosnan around.
Oh, it's awesome. It's so great. It really is. The only time that I've been laughing, most of the time I've just been complaining about how bad this is. Now I'm really loving how bad this is.
Anytime that tree shows up, I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
And it really is. They did a good job of making that tree look like Venus de Milo.
It's got curves. Yes.
And why does Joe come back from the dead? Like, all of a sudden his wife is there in a red dress to, I don't know, tell him to pour the lie?
To fight Sarah.
She saves him. She fights Sarah, yeah.
Does she fight?
Well, she yells.
All right, yeah, screaming. That's not exactly a fist fight, but...
I mean, that's all Sarah does is scream in that house. Again, she never lived there. She was passing through town. Why does she haunt the house?
Yeah, I don't know. This is awful.
But he melts the body with the lie because he figured out the riddle.
Kissing. This is what we've been missing.
This causes the Sarah ghost to scream and disappear from the tree.
I mean, again, if this were about grief, he gets to kiss his wife goodbye, and this is supposed to be emotional. Again, I just think this is hysterical that after a tree is bitch slapping people, Mick Garris really thinks he can get us back to the drama of a man that lost his wife. That is just, it's too much. I just can't even believe that they thought that they could have a teary scene of her fading away and saying, I love you, in the shadow of, yes, bodies sizzling under lie and a tree that has tits and curves. Just unbelievable.
Can I just say that Pierce Brosnan pours that lie with abandon, given that it melts flesh. He's not wearing safety gloves. He's treating it like it's freaking dishwasher detergent, and yet it's going to cause these bodies to melt away.
Well, maybe Joe should have done better wording on side left down when she was leaving hints.
Yeah, right. Don't leave hints. Leave specific instructions about how to do this right when he gets to the cabin so that we didn't have to spend all these hours and hours over this stupid non-event.
But then we have to have one final scare. Pierce Brosnan returns to his lake house and, oh my God, Kyra's in the bathtub. Why is Kyra in the bathtub? Because Roguette is there with barber scissors ready to stab Mike.
Why?
I mean, I don't know what she means. I don't know why this is happening. I will say it's just kind of funny that just to watch Pierce Brosnan drive those scissors into her neck. Yeah, it's a bad moment for everyone, really.
Career low for Pierce Brosnan, I think.
Yeah, and Maddie's water ghost. This is where she pops up and tries to comfort. Again, so much of this is it goes from hilariously stupid violence to cheesy love story where ghost women try to comfort. It's just... tonally, what a mess. And ends on a canoe. Let's go paddle, because that's what you do with the police coming to investigate the triple homicides and all that have gone on.
As you take off with a child that you do not have legal custody of.
Right, exactly. He's like, I'm the daddy now. Until DCFS gets there, and then they'll take it away from your crazy ass.
Yeah, he's got to be the prime suspect. I mean, he did stab Roguette in the neck.
Oh, yeah. He ain't getting that child. No way. We better canoe real fast.
So, Jakob, Stuart, let's go through our ritual. Tell me why there's yet another not recommend from all of us for this Mick Garris work. Jakob.
There's actually stuff I wanted more of from this story. I wanted more of the tree. I wanted more of Roguette. Like, she should have just been the main bad guy. Like, she had a look. But while I wanted more of some stuff, I wanted a whole lot less running time. Like, get this down to 90 minutes with trees bitch slapping people. Brown Arrow recommend all day, every day. Unfortunately, like, all the Brown Arrow fun is so diluted with Pierce Brosnan just walking around, looking at pictures of his wife, caressing his computer screen. Like, yeah, just make it a madcap weird film and I'd be there for it. Unfortunately, this is a madcap film still, but it's 2.5 hours long and I don't really know what it's about. Again, like I said, I continually in my notes, like, an hour in, don't know where this is going. Like, even at the 30-minute mark, I'm like, how much more can happen? And it's kind of crazy. Everything happens in the last 30 minutes, I feel, of this. Like, you get so much, but for so long, it's directionless. You say this is a book that's the majority of it's meditations on writing. I think I would have enjoyed that. I liked learning about trunk novels and things like that, but Mick Garris is not the person to give you an introspective film about a writer. So we get this trash that's too long, and so all the fun Brown Arrow stuff is too diluted, which means this is a really boring watch with brief moments of greatness. Strong, not recommend.
Stuart.
Yeah, I think it's a big, bold statement, but I'm going to repeat. I think that this is Mick Garris's worst film. I don't think he's ever been worse. And that's because he's poorly matched with material that I think could actually work. Again, I'm going to insist if you actually had a director who, was interested in Rebecca, who was interested in a story that wasn't predicated on so many jump scares and just lame zombie pops out of the tub kind of crap. There was something to say. I do think you could peel away the disorganization that is in that novel. That it really does fall apart at the end, but they had something in the beginning, and if you had just stuck to what it started out being, and I say don't even bring in the jazz singer, like just make it about a guy trying to find his writing voice and dealing with grief, that is the kind of bittersweet drama that, many directors could do, but Mick Garris never could. On his best day, not capable, but God knows. Yeah, the tree and all his choices, the scary old person, the death in the tub. It's remarkable how many scenes fall howlingly flat. And yet, I can't even give this a Brown Arrow. It's so boring. It's so ill-paced that the good stuff is, I think you used the word diluted, Jacob, and that's true. I mean, Bag of Bones is a sack of shit, and it is one of the worst Stephen King movies. I mean, that's really saying something, but if I have to rank it, there are still some Children of the Corn movies, Firestarter 2, all the Manglers, there's still some real shit. But as far as things that would air on television, this is the worst.
Worse than the Langoliers? The Pac-Man aliens?
Yep. I mean, it's right there. I mean, again, we're splitting. Yes, Tommy Knockers, Langoliers, His Shining. I'm going to say this is pretty much there, but worse than them all.
Yeah, I would agree with that only because The Shining has laughable moments that I can enjoy making fun of.
Yeah, correct. Brown Arrow. There's more Brown Arrow in all of those things. This is really boring for most of the run.
And I want to be clear. There's not a recommendable movie in here. There's not good things in here. This movie could have been better if it wasn't a 2-night event. If they just chopped this down and made it 2 hours, even if you had to make it like 3 hours so that the runtime was actually 2 after commercials. If you made this standard movie length, it's not that much longer, but chop out a lot of the repetition, chop out a lot of Pierce Brosnan's pitiful anguish acting.
Yes. Help the brother out. Like, when he is going overboard. If the director can't tell, the editor should be able to.
Yeah. Cut a lot of that stuff down, and you could have an acceptable movie. Not a recommendable movie, but at least something I could look at and say, I understand what you are. I understand what you tried to do. Here, I don't even understand necessarily what Mick Garris was trying to do with all that he included and all that he cut out from the book. I mean, it's literally like he took the book and randomly ripped out pages to skip and then left in other stuff. And I can't imagine Jakob's experience of watching this without having read the book, because when I try to project that, I feel like this movie's really incoherent.
It is. It was.
The book became that, but yes, this movie, I think he's trying to be scary, Arnie. This is what I would argue is his emphasis is, I'm going to ignore anything that's dramatic and just try to get you every 5 minutes, because that's what Stephen King fans want, scariness.
And I think you're onto something, because I felt like, this feels like it should be more dramatic with a writer grieving, but then we gotta cut away to a stuffed moose with a bell on it every 5 minutes to get his reaction of it ringing. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's scary.
Yeah, so this is a really strong not recommend. Stay the hell away from this. I was completely just biding my time until the credits rolled on the second night of this. And yeah, if this was a TV series, I wouldn't have made it through the first night. There was nothing here to hold my interest, and I'm a big Pierce Brosnan fan. I thought I would watch anything with Pierce in it, and I would have turned this off. So no, big red arrow, fuck this show.
Well, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is, next week, Stephen King TV miniseries.
Oh, no.
On 3 nights. Not just a 2-night event. 3-night event. The good news? I've never seen Storm of the Century, but people that like Stephen King say this is one of the very best adaptations of all time.
Hey, you know who likes Stephen King? Mick Garris does, so that's not comforting.
It's not an adaptation, Stuart. There's no book. This is an original screenplay like Sleepwalkers.
That's not comforting either.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I mean to say is people talk about this as being one of his very best works. And yes, he wrote it directly for ABC TV, but didn't direct it. So I have a little bit of optimism that it's not going to be as terrible as what we just sat through.
Yeah, I've heard good things as well. I've never seen it. I don't know anything about it, but we will come back next week to review it.
And if you want something legitimately good in the horror genre, then please become a platinum donor and join us this Friday. We're starting Ty West's trilogy with Mia Goth, his slasher 70s porno film X. It's just a really compelling film. It has a unique take on the slasher genre that I can't wait to talk about.
Yeah, I really wanted to find a way to fit that into our schedule. I'd been talking to Stuart about it since Maxine was supposed to come out last year, and fortunately, we found the time in our schedule for Platinum donors where we can review the entire X trilogy with Maxine coming out in theaters. You can get this either a donation to us via PayPal of $35 or more, or being a patron on Patreon or Podbean of $50 or more. If you're on Patreon or Podbean, you get a ton of other shows besides just those, because you get all the Planet of the Apes shows, all the M. Night Shyamalan shows, all of that. But every penny you donate helps to keep Now Playing going, and we couldn't do it without listeners like you supporting us. So thank you in advance for your support, and thank you for listening to Now Playing. And Stuart, Jacob, thank you for joining me. So go away right now, this very day, in the clothes you stand in, and leave the podcast to me.
This isn't over yet, Noonan.
Oh, thank God, Max. It's just starting to get fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing, and we hope you've enjoyed the show.
It's over, Mike. It's over. This custody case is over.
Come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com to hear our reviews of other Stephen King movies, such as Carrie, The Shining, Children of the Corn, Cujo, and dozens more in our archives section.
I'm sorry to make a habit of scaring you.
Also on our site, hear reviews of other films such as Maniac, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw, Riddick, Friday the 13th, The Avengers films, Star Trek, and more. Find hundreds of movie review podcasts at NowPlayingPodcast.com and come back each week for another new movie review.
Come to me. I have so much to show you, Mike.
Support from listeners like you help keep Now Playing operating.
Do you care about your soul, Mr. Noonan?
You can find a link to donate using PayPal at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
Worried that you might be bound to this curse by blood.
You can also help out Now Playing by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. A link to Now Playing's iTunes listing can be found at nowplayingpodcast.com.
We have ways of making you talk.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
I'm not afraid to do the things that need to be done.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
Custody has its responsibilities.
Now Playing is edited by Heath and Arnie.
No, good idea. Scrub away.
Now Playing credit narration by Brock.
I don't like your tone of voice.
The film discussed in this podcast is the property of its respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
And the judge would not, in such a case, be required to base his decision on my conclusions.
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Surprising the secrets that people keep.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2024, all rights reserved, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
I'll see you soon.
Sure. Yeah?
Be blessed, lay thee down now and rest.
You know, it's tough to disrespect the dead, but the late, never great Jason Priestley is here.
He's not dead.
Yeah, he is.
No, Luke Perry died.
That's the other one, yeah.
Luke Perry died. Jason Priestley's quite alive. He had a car accident.
Oh, he's not dead, so I can make fun of him all I want.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Let me rephrase that then.
But it is only until night 2 that they really start to dig in the hooks about what this Mick Garrett, I want to say Garish, but this Mick Garrett, what is his name?
Garris.
Garris.
Yeah. This Mick Garris